Kelsey, and this is Todd.
And this is StoryHive On Location, Kamloops.
We're in Kamloops with Jeremy Gauthier. I'm sorry if I said that wrong.
It's really well done.
I apologize for the horrible introduction. Jeremy, you've been super busy. I want to know all about it. All I know is that you care a lot about workplace safety and mental health. How do those two go together?
For sure. Great question. What is it that I do is a really long story. So after spending about 20 years in the automotive industry, recently I've branched out to become an entrepreneur for the very first time. So many things to learn when you live in this structured world day after day after day, and then you don't. And so the main project has been keynote speaking. So telling a story of workplace safety and positive mental health and self-care to a couple of different audiences, whether it's university students or in a corporate setting. Lots and lots of fun there. Also doing workshops based off the same material, and then just being a mental health advocate wherever possible.
Totally.
So, yeah, and supporting as many community initiatives as possible in the process, because it's important to be a big part of your community.
For sure. I see you're making a lot of connections. Like, I think it was on Tuesday you were at TRU. You did a big speech there.
Yeah, you betcha. So my background is in workplace tragedy, unfortunately. So in my experience in the automotive industry, in 2018, we lost a young worker to a completely preventable accident. And that's the kicker. They're all preventable. Right? The stats indicate that 97% of workplace accidents are preventable, and the other 3% are natural disaster. So through intentional action, we can prevent every single one from happening. And that's the message that we like to deliver to the TRU trade students and as people as young as possible, because it's really the next generation coming up and coming into the workforce that needs to know what their worker rights are, what the hazards are to avoid, the questions to ask, and just how you prevent something like this from ever happening again. When we started this, that's where we thought it would go, is mostly in a construction or automotive mechanics, industrial settings. It seemed like the most logical spot to present this information, but it turns out that safety is just as important on a film set or in an office building. It doesn't change, and it's like you said, it's not just an I to dot or a T to cross or just a thing you have to get out of the way to get work going. It needs to be looked at in a different light to make sure that nothing bad ever happens, and it's to be taken seriously. And that's tricky because the information is quite dry.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's where I come in, and we talked about this a little bit before we began today. Doing a little bit of stand-up comedy, because although we're talking about something very serious, it's important to make it engaging and palatable, and taking something tangible away that you can do to make a difference. And so, if I can provide a little analogy, there's a great one. So we talk about workplace accidents, but really the discussion is more about ownership. Right? And so ownership's a fun word. It's more than just the name on the door. Right? And so ownership and accountability are related. Ownership comes before, and accountability usually comes after. And in the middle is the problem. Right? So you said something earlier, one of the principles of ownership is leading by example.
Yeah.
And so setting the tone. And so you don't have to be in a position of leadership to lead by example. I mean, unfortunate for my chosen profession as a speaker and for what you guys do, communication is largely nonverbal.
Yeah.
Right? Like I always say to parents, parents or anybody really, but parents is the best parallel, because we're playing this super high value game of monkey see, monkey do. Right?
Totally.
Right? And so, it's to be taken a little more seriously. So I go in talking about safety and training, and oftentimes I'll end up in a boardroom having a discussion with people that are 50 or 60 years old, and they go, how do we connect with these young people? How we used to do things doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. It's an absolutely brand new playing field. And so while we all had to pay our dues, right, and do things the slow, methodical approach, things have completely changed. And so understanding that the rules are different now, and these young people that we have coming up into the workforce, they're exceptional. They can move at light speed because they have so much information at their fingertips. They've learned faster, they've onboarded faster, and they have this completely different way of doing things that seems not right. but perhaps maybe there's more to it than we're giving credit for.
Do you think in the conversation around workplace safety, is there a, and obviously this may not cover every example, but is there anything that you can sort of point to as common causes for issues with workplace safety, whether it be trying to push efficiency too far and ignoring safety? Is it about becoming too comfortable with the processes? Where do you think is maybe the biggest culprit for issues with workplace safety?
For sure. You've tapped into a couple there. Yeah. Complacency is massive. Yeah. You get, a lot of us are out here doing a really good job for years at a time. And you've just done it this way and it hasn't bit you yet. Mm-hmm. But if you're aware of the pyramid of safety, you get 300 near misses to 30 minor incidents to 1 fatality. Mm-hmm. It's a mathematical equation.
Yeah.
And so the math will always win, right? So you have to just...
And it's
gambling, yeah.
I feel like when you are...
And not the fun way to gamble.
When you're so used to something and you are so experienced, I think sometimes people think they could cut corners when they shouldn't. Also, there's a lot of from the guy at the top that he's yelling at the people, get it done. Deadline was last week, and it's we gotta get it done. Who are you trying to collaborate with? Just various industries,
Yeah, I mean like I said, what we thought was going to be very industrial and commercial is actually branching out. So I've done a little bit of work in healthcare. Because, the lessons learned along the way, healthcare is huge, but the lessons learned along the way haven't necessarily all been safety related. It's kind of amazing. It's the beginning of my sobriety journey, which is an interesting thing. I mean, it did take 3 years to stop drinking alcohol altogether, but that's the start of it, 2018 to 2021, and haven't had a drink since October of 2021.
Congrats, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so positive steps for sure. And so, it's cross-industry. And so one of the biggest lessons learned was self-care and how that works. And so a lot of us were raised with this self-care program that's you give and give and give, and whatever you have left at the end of the day, that's for you. Super common self-care plan.
It doesn't really work sometimes, does it?
Well, I mean,
the math may not necessarily work out in those equations.
The math don't be mathin', because a lot of people at the end of the day just don't have the time, energy, or space for themselves. They're done. And so it's interesting. So not all inputs are created equal, so as it turns out. And if you take that exact same self-care equation that a lot of us were raised with, and you flip it, and you do that self-care portion first, you're actually able to have a far greater output.
Oh, interesting.
So if you front load it, it's amazing how that can change things for you. And so that's the message that we bring to healthcare workers, because healthcare workers just give so much.
Well,
It sounds from the way that you've talked about it that there is sort of a connection between your sobriety journey and then making this shift in your work. If that's the case, do you want to talk about that a little bit, about how one maybe led to the other?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting journey. So this workplace tragedy that occurred was always on my heart and mind. And so a couple of things happened. It was the beginning of the sobriety journey, and so on and off over the course of 3 years with alcohol and eventually stopping. Mm-hmm. Then that also led into letting go of marijuana as well. Mm-hmm. And so when you get rid of some of these habits, well, it feels like moving mountains, and it is hard. I don't want to diminish it in any way, shape, or form or minimize it, but you need to find new hobbies. Because all of a sudden you have quite a bit of time on your hands. Yeah, and so I still, I'd really like to shout out WorkSafe BC for offering counseling post-accident. Mm-hmm. So that was my first ever experience with a counselor on a couch. It just as an introduction to therapy for the first time, it was amazing. It felt so good. And so, I mean, we can pull up my bank statements and you can see the thousands of dollars that I've poured into it since, right? Personal info, yeah. But I will go broke on a couch for my own personal mental health, just because it's so important. It's been such a huge piece of that. But back to finding a new hobby, I had taught myself to read again. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that I couldn't read. it was,
weren't.
I just wasn't reading. And so, and I went back and somebody gave me a really small book called Who Will Cry When You Die by Robin Sharma. But this particular book is about 4x4. It's really small and the chapters are 1 or 2 pages long.
Oh, I could do that.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It's probably obvious there's a little ADHD going on this side of the table. And so reading, it's all over.
Goes all
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
But I would often read the same page over and over and over again. But with this small palatable book, I was able to achieve it and finish it and close it and move on. It's like, okay, we can do this. And so little by little, I would read more and more and get better at it. And now at this point, I can digest a book quite quickly,
Nice.
which is amazing. And so I love it. It's one of my favorite hobbies. It's one of the self-care things I do at 5 in the morning.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's super cool. And then one of the other habits or hobbies that came as a result of sobriety was writing. So I
Nice.
had this huge thing on my heart and mind, and it was just sitting there. And I think it was a Sunday where I just decided when I woke up that I would start writing. And I thought about what had happened June
So
June
journaling
29th.
kind of a thing, would you say? Or
I thought I was writing a book, but
Okay.
I just laid on the bed and wrote for an entire Sunday, filled an entire legal pad.
wow.
And I think my wife thought I was not well, but it was one of the most therapeutic things I had ever done. And I got this thing that was sitting on my heart and mind and just got it off onto many pieces of paper.
How did you feel after?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And
Lighter?
Lighter, just better. And then when I read this thing back, it didn't sound like a book, and it didn't sound like anything other than information that should be shared to prevent it from ever happening again.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what is the basic general overview of the lesson that you teach.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm sure you have it broken down in little categories. What do you go over?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is when we think about professional development or personal development, it feels huge. Right? And when it feels huge, it feels like a job for maybe tomorrow or another day. And so I have an acronym, and just like any person who's ever spoken in front of a group, they have some version of this, which is mine is small, consistent actions lead to excellence, which spells scale. Just
Say that one more time.
small, consistent actions lead to excellence.
Ooh.
So the scale is the world's most popular measuring device. And if you measure your small, consistent actions over time, you will notice things change drastically. And so,
You're a deep thinker.
oh yeah, not exactly. Like I said, if you read any sort of self-help book, there'll be a version of that.
Yeah.
So for a practical example, Robin Sharma, a favorite of mine, says small, seemingly insignificant tasks when repeated over time will create outstanding results.
That is too long.
I know.
I think five has got to be the most.
You
Otherwise-
angered Todd.
Yeah. I wasn't angry, but
Well, if you say that in front of a crowd, they'll tune out about halfway through.
exactly.
Yeah. So it's, but yeah, so just breaking it down into bite-sized pieces, manageable pieces, and so sharing some of the most impactful things I've ever done for my life, and so that's the irony, that's the kicker. So having let go of all of these addictions, I would come to the realization that the best things that I've ever done for my life take me the sum total of 5 minutes per day, and not even consecutively. And so, so there's a science behind happiness. And
I have to know it.
okay, here I'll do what I do in the keynote. Put your hand up if you'd like more happiness in your life. Right? Okay, cool. We all want that. Happiness and gratitude are directly related. And so the thing that I do for 2.5 minutes in the morning is just list 3 things that I'm grateful for every day. And so the list of things that to be grateful for will actually grow over time if you do it consistently.
Yeah.
That's key, right? So just journaling, whatever format, right? I mean, iPhone has a terrific journaling app that'll prompt you to do all sorts of fun stuff, but just write down 3 things.
Yeah, and I think maybe the idea is that for some people who don't always find it easy to remember the things they're grateful for, you start small with 3, so it's achievable.
For sure.
And then as you get used to that, you start finding more and more and more of them. And because I think we do all have things to be grateful for. If you were to draw a Venn diagram, where each circle is a different industry where you've gone and talked about safety issues. What is the subject where all the circles overlap? Is there something that is common amongst all industries?
Yeah, so the issues our communication, typically.
Right.
So, I mean, working together is always going to be a challenge because there's so many personalities in the room. So there's a lot of, and there's different age groups, and we touched on that a little bit earlier. Like, how do we connect with each other? And so that's the trick, right? So a relationship is a relationship, no matter how you slice it or dice it. And so it's important to ask people how they'd like to be treated, which is not a question that happens very often,
You're right.
strangely
it's not.
enough.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, you can make a slightly off-color joke and say something like, when you first met your wife, I'm pretty sure it was important to you to ask her how she wanted to be treated. It doesn't matter. A relationship's a relationship. So it's important to have that dialogue. And we spoke about the generation gap, and that's really interesting because a lot of young people are super hyper aware of how they'd like to be treated.
Yeah, totally.
And oftentimes they'll just email you a PDF because they already know.
Right? Yeah.
You just have to bother to ask the question, and that's huge too. So just even asking that question is a massive way to gain understanding between generations, between people, even if it was you and I who are similarly aged.
Yeah, but there's still going to be differences, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. We weren't raised the same, and
Yeah.
so it's important to understand where we're all coming from, and that's what people struggle with. I mean, most of the world's problems could be solved with communication. Bold statement.
So what is your next
You can call them
thingy-thing?
you can call them performances because
Performance.
it's like a performance. It's what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's a form of entertainment to a degree. It's just educational entertainment. Yeah.
Are they about 1 hour longish, or how?
Yeah. So
Or is it like a day?
it just depends. So in a workshop setting, it would be over the course of 2.5 or 3 hours to go through the information and then work with each person or with all the people to make sure they have a keen understanding of what we talked about. And there's some paperwork to do and whatnot. Have you ever heard of Threads of Life before?
No.
Threads of Life is a terrific Canadian not-for-profit. Their primary goal is to serve people who have been impacted by workplace injury, illness, or fatality. And it's an amazing organization. They are so good at meeting people where they're at.
Yeah.
And they will take anybody who's been affected by it. So although it wasn't a family member of mine, they've taken me in and supported me in any possible way. And so they do these amazing things called family forums. So anybody who's been affected by those things, they bring together once a year, either in Western Canada, Central Canada, or Eastern Canada. So they do 3 of them. And you get to be in a room full of people that get you. Because not a lot of people understand. I could sit here and tell you all about it all evening, and it still wouldn't cover it. And so there's certain comfort that happens when you know somewhat how they feel.
Right.
To a certain extent, or just seeing all of that in the same room is massively impactful. Is it hard? Sure. Is it therapeutic? Yes. Is it beneficial? Also, yes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they do quite a few really cool things. And so, I've agreed to do something really cool for them. So for the very first time in Kamloops, we're hosting a Steps for Life walk, which is their annual fundraiser that happens all over Canada. And Kamloops has never had one until this year.
Well, thanks, Jeremy, for bringing that.
Yeah.
So where's the walk going to be?
May 2nd at MacArthur Island, and you can sign up at stepsforlife.ca.
And is this like a fundraiser? Or?
It's a huge fundraiser,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're looking for some corporate partners, and then also when you sign up to walk, you can walk for free, or you have the option to donate.
Right.
And even the smallest donation just goes such a long way. One of the encouraging things about occupational health and safety is that it's developed a new arm, if you will, which is wellness. Mental health.
Exactly. It goes hand in hand.
It's the preventative portion of occupational health and safety. It's the root cause of most complacency
Right.
or most
Exactly.
accidents.
That's what that's what I meant when things can lead up to, the fatalities. When you're super low and depressed and, emotional, you make dangerous decisions, or
Life's hard.
life's hard.
You'll have
Don't
a hard time getting somebody to disagree with you that life's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has its intricacies for every single one of us.
Yeah.
And so making sure that we're all happy, healthy, and whole is actually the best way to prevent workplace accidents from happening.
Yeah.
Right? So present and accounted for. And so like we talked about before, it doesn't have to be huge things. It can just be tiny little things. So when we talked about gratitude, it's the sentence that solves it all is if you are acutely aware of what matters most, you'll do anything to protect it.
Yeah.
And that's what gratitude is, right? And so, and by anything to protect it, you will take the extra steps. You will make sure that you come home the exact same way that you went to work. It's
When it comes to questions around, mental illness in the workplace, do you think that most businesses have sufficient supports for that sort of thing?
That's a great question. And yeah, most businesses have a plan that will cover some version of counseling or therapy or mental health supports in place, especially with how much it's been introduced into our lives with mental health. I mean, an employer would be wise if they didn't to add it.
Do you think it's challenging for some people to accept that they may need help in regards to mental health?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Whether we think that we've reduced the stigma or not, it still exists.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for a catastrophic event to happen in your life to make positive change.
You should also probably not wait.
You should not. I mean, that's my truth. That's my reality. That's my path. But dang, don't do it that way. Yeah, don't do what Donnie Don't does.
In what sort of areas would you like to expand the work that you're doing now? Or like what's next in line for you as far as ways to grow professionally?
Always looking for areas of growth.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of my life. But looking into a couple of different routes. So going even younger. So the goal is to write a children's book.
Oh, very cool.
Around this topic, just because it starts young.
I was going to suggest puppets.
Puppets would be a great job. Yeah, marionettes. How are you with a marionette?
Oh.
It's we could move to Amsterdam and start a little marionette show.
Growing puppet collection, actually. So.
That's terrific. Yeah, we could figure out something there for sure. So writing a children's book, I think, is a really fun project that can help get that knowledge out there earlier, because safety at work and safety at home are the same thing. I mean, we've all seen dad on the ladder doing something suspicious, right? It's amazing. And so the kids want the kids to be able to call them out on it.
Yeah.
And just know. And so if you start with the youngest generation, they're going to move through and they're going to know exactly when they get to these situations what not to do. So the word accident in itself, the dictionary definition has the word unintentional in it. Mm-hmm. And if you peel out the extra word there, it's intention. Mm-hmm. So accidents are not real, right? They don't actually exist. You can call it an incident is probably a better way to put it. So you said, when you were talking about driving down the road, you can't be responsible for what that other person is doing, but you're very responsible for what you were doing.
Yes.
So it's a very unpopular opinion and it's hard to digest, but you put yourself in that piece of road at that given time. That was your doing. And how sharp you are in that and how sharp you are in that moment and how you react to whatever's going on around you is definitely within your control. So how much sleep you got the night before, if you'd used any substance, if you were smoking, if you're listening to the radio.
I'm not going to drive anywhere, okay? Jeez.
Are you grounded?
I'll call you a U-ride. No, it's just an interesting thing. Like I said, it's hard to palate, but ultimately you're in control. You can control what you can control.
Yeah, yeah.
Most of us don't actually go as far as we could. There's small steps that you can take to get it just a little bit further so that you react better. And one of the most basic things is that self-care thing we talked about. Mm-hmm. So my favorite quote in the whole world is, kindness is the rent we must pay to occupy our space on this planet.
Interesting.
And so you can say something really outlandish like
You're full of quotes. You just should write a quote book.
Quote book. You don't actually have to be nice to other people.
What do you? Oh, I don't know.
You were saying something.
Be nice.
You can hold on to it again if you want.
No.
So you don't have to be nice to other people.
No, you don't.
You don't.
No.
You don't. It's not actually a requirement.
I'm so exhausted. I'm so nice all the time.
Well, here's the kicker. The only person you have to be nice to is yourself.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? And when you actually are being kind to yourself,
I love
you have to be nice to me.
yeah, you ever stare in the mirror and say, I love you?
Yeah?
No.
Oh.
I did it the other day. It's interesting. So if you're actually kind to yourself, it makes it easier to be kind organically to other people. So you don't actually we're Canadians, right? So we're super kind. And I'm not saying people are out there being unkind to each other. I'm just saying that you can do it with less energy. It's far less exhausting if you're kind to yourself in the beginning, and then you're more organically, it's just easier to be kind to everybody else that comes into your bubble. Do you know how scoring in golf works?
Vaguely, yeah, I think so.
If you're doing really well, it's a negative number. You are under par.
Well, yeah.
So, but for
I don't
instance,
think you can get a negative score because that means you've
No, it's literally that's how it works. So when Tiger Woods won his first Masters, he was his final winning score was minus 16.
Under par.
Right,
Yeah,
but it says
still,
minus 16.
yeah, okay, you're
Stay
right.
with
But
me for
the
a second.
score is actually a positive number because he had so many strokes, right?
But it says minus.
I'm just...
And so the
It's not debate club right now.
Okay,
this is
sorry.
awesome. And the rest of the field average score was +2.
Okay, yeah.
And so the greatest performance in the history of the Masters tournament was a negative number.
Right.
Why would that be? Is it because maybe we learn more from our failures than we ever do our greatest successes? Perhaps.
No, I don't think that's why. But it's a reasonable argument.
It's a reasonable argument, yeah. So, I mean, there's just a bunch of different ways that it parallels.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the reasons that we're on this planet? To connect with ourselves, each other, and the earth.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
I've always liked Kurt Vonnegut's quote of, we are here to help each other through this thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's a great quote.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with golf, it's the same thing. We're there to help each other through
As long as we're not
all the
competing
adversity.
against
Yeah.
the game.
Well, that's the thing. You're only competing against yourself. That's another way that it's just like
Right?
life.
That's a fair point,
You
yeah.
could be playing against the best players in the world or your 3 best friends. It doesn't really matter what they do. All
What
that
matters
matters
is what I
is what
do.
you do, right? So it's interesting in that way. And you're connecting with the earth and with other people. And you know why it's such an effective business tool is because within the first 20 minutes to half an hour, I'm going to instantly know how you handle failure,
Oh, interesting.
how you handle success,
Yeah.
how you celebrate others, and how you treat other people.
Right. Well, you may
That's a good
if I
one.
play really badly that day, you may not get to see how I handle success, but fair enough.
But fair enough,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I mean, but does anybody really care how you're doing when you're doing well, or would they rather judge you when you're doing poorly?
That's a good question.
Most of the time, I mean, everybody's good when they're doing good.
Yeah, but some people do
gloat.
good badly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
There's sore losers, but then there's sore winners too.
But yeah, really, we're just judged on how we handle adversity. And
Yeah.
in golf, there's so much of that.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
hard. Golf's very hard. So is life.
It is.
There are 18 holes of golf in most courses.
And you're 18 years old when you move out of the house.
I was thinking more along the lines that no matter what you believe in, we can all probably pretty agree that there's one infinite source for most things on life, on planet Earth, to a certain extent. You can cut this if you like, but there's, whether you believe in religion or the universe, it all comes down to one thing,
Right.
or one microorganism, whatever it is.
Right.
Okay? And the infinity symbol, when you stand it up, is an 8.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 1 and an 8. One infinite source for everything on the planet Earth.
Oh my.
I told you you're a deep thinker.
But I can't swim.
You can't
I'm just
swim.
kidding. I can swim. Yeah.
What a failure.
That wasn't very kind. That wasn't very
No,
kind.
I'm kidding. Any final? We're about ready. We're ready to wrap.
But
up.
everything's
Any-
connected. All of your analogies, you managed to bring golf into this.
For sure. I mean, and yeah. I mean, I'm sure, of course, a middle-aged white man thinks golf's the greatest game ever invented. But not for those reasons.
Right.
Yeah, golf's come a long way, and it's great, and it's more accessible than it's ever been. But it's an important game.
Have you tried disc golf?
For sure. That's an amazing game as well. Even more accessible because the barrier for entry would be slightly lower.
It's free.
Right. You don't need the clubs.
Yeah. Or the course is generally free, public property.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of fun. Really, any way that you want to connect with other people and enjoy nature is a positive.
Yeah.
For sure.
Take a moment to shout out the mini golf course at.
MacArthur Island, yeah.
Yeah,
I have
amazing.
a question first.
Okay.
Do you suggest, like, whatever business, whatever job you have, if there's a bunch of employees, do you think it's important for all those employees to get to know each other, like at a barbecue, outside of work? Do you think that will help the relationship? The work,
Always, in my personal experience, having a connection outside of the 4 walls that you're normally inside of is important. It's important to know the people. It doesn't have to be that way at a barbecue. It doesn't have to be a structured event necessarily.
Yeah.
Those things that you just spoke of are actually completely attainable within the walls of work.
True.
We just have to find common ground and time and energy space to do it.
There are some jobs, though, where there's lots of employees, but you never really see your coworkers. You just, see them pass by, but you never really, yeah, I know, sometimes it's a good thing.
I work
But
from home, so I'm
I think
grateful I don't have a lot of interactions with
I think it's super important to know who you're working with and like how they are. And I
Well,
don't know.
it's right back to the relationship thing. So it's important to have a relationship on a level that builds trust. Because
Yeah.
if you're working beside these people, if you're working towards a common goal, hopefully you're all towing the line to one direction. You want to have some form of respect and understanding between people, and that's huge. Yeah. So however you choose to do it, please do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any final thoughts you want to share? Any final words?
Be kind to one another. Be kind to yourself. The quote said, "Be kind. Kindness is the rent we must pay." But who do you usually pay rent for? For you,
Yeah.
right?
The government.
Unless you're divorced, and then you're probably paying your ex-wife's rent.
Exactly. All right. Well, before we wrap up, just a reminder that if you want to join us for a stream, if you have a subject you think would be worth streaming about, I'm talking, I should have the microphone.
Yeah, you're right.
There's going to be a QR code on your screen right now that you can snap a little picture of, and it'll bring you to a form you can fill out, and we'll be in touch with you. We'll give you a call and say, hey, maybe we should stream. That's all you got to do.
It can happen that fast.
It can, yeah. Thank you, Jeremy, for hanging out with us.
It's been my absolute pleasure. You guys are amazing to speak with.
Do you have a website or anything that people can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. jgoatspeaks.com. So J and then goat, like the farm animal. It's a play on my last name, Gauthier.
All right.
Or on Instagram at jgoatspeaks.
And the cat has managed to finally sneak in.
Okay.
Macaroni, the gray cat.
Macaroni?
That's right.
Great name. All right. Good night, Macaroni. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next time.
I thought it was Marvel.
No,
That's the other cat.
Marble's the other cat. Yeah, Macaroni. Ella named him Macaroni.